5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this very important hearing. I hear very regularly from both retailers and merchant community back in Kentucky, in addition to community financial institutions that serve consumers in central and eastern Kentucky, about the problem of data security. Of course, the Equifax breach is a warning to us all that this is a very large scope problem. As we marked up the legislation last year to attempt to address this problem, the Carney-Nagelbauer legislation, we got different competing stories from the various different actors that would be affected by this, and I kind of want to unpack all of that discussion here. So a community bank in Kentucky has told me that they have increased spending significantly over the last 18 months on data security. Why? Because they have seen the number of account takeovers triple, meaning scammers, through the use of personally identifiable information and security questions data, tried to gain access to an account by calling the bank and asking for addresses to be changed and new debit cards to be ordered, et cetera. These same community banks and credit unions tell me that they're spending a whole lot of money dealing with the fraud and reissuance of cards. So what they talk about is the weakest link in the data security system. And so my first question to Ms. Schwartz is, where do you view the weakest link to be?
In the payment market, they're absolutely right. The weakest link is where the criminals are going to go. And frankly, it's at the merchant level at this point. Mission Fed spent over $1 million in 2017 for data security. Many of the merchants have little or no protocol in place for things as simple as getting rid of old data or shredding or virus protection. It doesn't have to cost $1 million. There's basic financial hygiene, if you will, that can be implemented at a reasonable cost, no matter what your size. And again, going back to Graham Leach Bliley, as a scalable and flexible rule that does provide a nice framework for protecting important consumer privacy data, financial data.
Now, what would you say, Ms. Schwartz, to the response from the merchant community that the breach notification legislation that we voted for in the last Congress would subject retailers to stringent bank-style security rules, whereas banks or credit unions would be subject only to discretionary guidance?
I don't think it's discretionary for us. It's our reputation. We are responsible on the hook monetarily, and we are very, very heavily regulated. I think HR 2205, which I believe is what you're referring to, did a very nice job at providing a level playing field. Because again, if you don't have the standards throughout the whole payment systems infrastructure, the criminals are going to find the weakest link.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so. Some community financial institutions in my district also would say that Regulation E forces them to pay when their customers are harmed, even though it is not their fault, when it's the fault of some other party. And that is a very understandable anxiety for those folks. But let me just kind of continue to try to unpack this, because the merchant community will say that small businesses simply don't pose the same kind of risk because they're only dealing with kind of a small category of vulnerabilities, namely credit card information, not a range of other kinds of sensitive information. What would you say in response to that?
I'd say in 2017 through the end of September, at my credit union alone, we've had 14,500 cases of reported fraud, costing us $1.7 million, money that could have been better spent serving our members. Again, basic financial hygiene of protecting sensitive data, updating virus protection, does not seem like an unreasonable standard for those merchants to have to follow in return for having a good business practice, a good name.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to your point of view. At the same time, I want to figure out a way forward, especially with those small businesses that are pushing back. And so any help that you all can give us in terms of working with the merchant community to come to work through these issues would be appreciated, because we clearly need a solution. And I think all parties, to their credit, have supported passage of some kind of federal data breach notification law to replace the existing patchwork. And I've run out of time, so I'll yield back.